What up, what up, what up? Welcome in to Green with Envy post game live, part of the 617 podcast, proudly brought to you by Crowworthy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in and joining me as he does each and every time, my co-host, best friend, and the coach of the podcast, one and only Greg Menakis. How you feeling, man?
Frustrated, very, very frustrated, angry, irritated, annoyed. Feel like we're right back in the last season, man. That's how I feel. I don't like it. I don't like it.
It's this. It it was like the optimism that was coming from our voices and coming from our demeanor, during the preseason, leading up to training camp, leading up to the preseason. Feels like it's all kind of washed away with new and old issues that are kind of resurfacing. As I was watching the games, and I was thinking about how I was going to intro this podcast, how we're going to. I'm still trying to bring a little bit of energy, a little bit of bravado to it to get us going, get the people going. But I was like, at the end of the day, this is just one of those games where it's not the worst game I've ever seen. It's clearly not the best game I've ever seen. And like, it was just a game that was on. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a game. This is just like a game. Like, there was a lot of stuff in there that we're going to find a few things that we like. There's a lot of stuff that we probably didn't like that we're going to talk about as well. But it's just a game that had a weird flow to it that wasn't the most enjoyable, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was one of those games that it was a slog, right? It was a slog,
Yeah,
and it
that's a good
felt
word for
more
it.
like closer to what you would see around the All-Star break in terms of like effort and energy. And that's something that Ime hit on his presser right after the
Yeah.
game, is he was talking about the effort during the shoot around. He brought up how they were lackluster in their effort during shoot around. It's like, yo, how are you not bringing effort and how are you not focused during your shoot around after coming off of a game which you probably shouldn't have won? You got lucky that you won. Like, what is it about this team that they can't just fucking focus? That's my first. That's my first F-bomb of the pod. That's not gonna be the last one.
I like it. We should get a counter going because I think that's going to be one of many so far. But you're right. That was the overarching theme of Ime's post game press conference was just like, where is the focus? And it's been throughout these first 5 games of the season now. First 2 and 3 start for the Celtics since 2015-16. That's disappointing to see. And even in the games that have been won, they kind of talked about in the press game post conference where I think Ime mentioned, aside from this game, the first 4 games, the Celtics have been up double digits in each of them at some point within the game. And then they kind of lose focus. Team comes back, then they make a run. And you really saw that in a bunch of different spurts these first 5 games. And today, I mean, really from, what was it, the 3/4 of the way through the first quarter, through the end of the game, Wizards had the lead the entire time. I think it was the last 38 minutes and 17 seconds, the Wizards led the game.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And, I wonder what he's saying, like, we weren't focused. We weren't bringing effort and energy. Okay. So early in the year, we talked about how this team has depth, right? Why are we shortening the rotation if you don't like the energy that you guys are bringing? Like, you have other guys on the bench that you can go to if you don't like the effort and energy that you're actually seeing on the court. And like, there was that one stretch in the end of the third quarter where Jalen sat pretty much the last half of the third quarter. So I'm wondering if Jalen is the guy he's really talking about, because I mean, KCP had him in jail all night until the fourth quarter. Like, we can talk about KCP later, but he shut Jalen down, and Jalen just wasn't engaged throughout the whole game.
He had a weird game,
weird game, right? So if you're not just talking about Jalen, if you're talking about everybody, you got Peyton Pritchard and you got Aaron Nesmith sitting there on the bench that are ready to come in, that are hungry for minutes. Go to those guys, man. Go to Juancho.
Yeah.
Go to somebody that's going to inject some energy into your lineup, because unless it's just Jalen, you didn't want to call him up by name, then you're saying it's everybody.
Well, to that point, so and we're going to swing back and talk more about the rotations and specifically 2 guys you mentioned, Aaron Nesmith and Peyton Pritchard. We were texting about this during the game, so we're certainly going to talk about it here. But with Jalen, there was an interesting question that kind of stemmed from the whole focus question, where I don't remember who asked the question of Ime, but was saying that Jalen has kind of fallen into a pattern. Over these first couple of games of the OT game, he's amazing. And then he had a pretty bad game against the Raptors. Sat the next game, then he came back. Great game against the Hornets in OT. Comes back today, rather lackluster. And so they were like, anything concerning? And Ime was like, yeah, I've noticed that too. doesn't feel like he specifically kind of said the focus wasn't there. And the word he used was it's mind boggling. And,
Mm.
then he kind of tracked back and did say, you mentioned maybe it's the COVID, maybe it's, being off for 10 days, maybe it's the knee that kept him out of the Rockets game. But just for him to use the words mind boggling, to me, what I read into that is that there is a sense of frustration with Ime that he's not understanding why Jalen's playing this way one game and then this way the next game,
Mhm.
which I think is really interesting for one of your star players that's very crucial to this team's success.
Yeah, and this is something that people have been getting on Jalen for years now, is that he seems to float in and out of games, especially on the defensive end. There were many times tonight where he just completely, it was his fault for the defensive breakdown. He lost a guy just ball watching, helping when he didn't need to help, and this guy would get wide open for a cut or wide open for a three. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something he's been knocked for years now, is he's one of the worst off-ball defenders in the league. Great on the ball, great in the passing lanes at times, but he's just unfocused on defense. And I'm the biggest JB fan out there, but the criticism's real, man. He like it's a pattern, and
Yeah.
it's a habit that he needs to break. And when you have other guys that deserve minutes, like Neesmith, in my opinion, deserves to be on the court at some point. He made such an impact last year with just his energy. And if your main critique of the team today is that they didn't have the right energy, well, then fucking put in the Energizer Bunny, put in Crash Neesmith, and let's fucking go crash test dummy, baby.
All right, we're up to three. We're up to three F bombs right now. So with that, let's turn our focus. Let's go to the morning box score here. Let's get that revved up right here. Let's reset for everybody that's joining us here right now. Everybody that's listening the following day as a podcast here. If you're listening, feel free to chime in. Go ahead, give us some comments, talk to us. We'd love to pull them up on the screen here. So let's get it going here. Morning box score, final score: Washington Wizards 116, Boston Celtics 107. Let's go ahead and start with the Wizards. Montrezl Harrell, 10 of 13 from the field, 25 points, 11 rebounds. Talk about a dude that brings some energy to the game. I mean, that was Montrezl Harrell's calling card. You think back to the bubble, pre-bubble, he was ready to get about $20 million payday. Bubble kind of really changed that for him, but I think he's still a very valuable player. Had a great night, great new addition for the Washington Wizards. Spencer Dinwiddie, 22 points, and I really call him out just because he hit two massive shots, or more than two massive threes, and another massive post-up on Dennis Schroeder towards the end of the game that really kind of sealed it. Dinwiddie, just a big-time fourth quarter player in this game. And you would think the way this game went, if I had told you pregame that Wizards were going to win 116 to 107, probably would have looked at me and asked me, man, what was Bradley Beal's box score? Well, it was 17 points on 25 shots. Not what you would expect, but 10 big rebounds from Bradley Beal and hit a big shot when it counted. So just another footnote there. Bradley Beal, not his best game, not what you would expect, not what you would hope for. If Wizards are going to beat you, you kind of thought it would go down with their best player throwing a haymaker. Not the case tonight. Swinging over to the Celtics here, Al Horford, great game today. Almost brought the energy back to the crowd to really get them into this one. Really, the last chance they had was a couple of putbacks that he had. Got screwed on a late foul call. Al Horford, 16 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, filling up the stat sheet. Dennis Schroeder off the bench tonight, 22 points, 4 of 6 from the three-point range. Back-to-back games with 4 3-pointers from Dennis Schroeder. 8 for 15 over his last 2 games, 6 assists and 2 steals tonight as well. Lob Williams, another solid game, 13 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks. The Jays, a little bit up and down. Tatum caught a little bit of heat towards the end of the third quarter. Didn't really, make its way over to the fourth quarter. Jalen struggled all night until the end. He turned it around just a little bit, but for the two Jays, 14 of 38 overall from the field, 2 of 12 from the three-point range, and 6 of 10 from the free throw line. Jason Tatum going 4 of 8 in only 2 attempts for Jaylen Brown from the free throw line. And as a whole, Celtics are out-rebounded, minus 14 in the rebound column, maybe something we touch on here. And down the stretch, this probably tells you of what happened here in the fourth quarter. 1-point game going into the fourth. Wizards shoot 56% to the Celtics 30%. As I mentioned, Spencer Dinwiddie had a great game down the stretch to really seal it for the Wizards. Greg, there's a lot that we want to talk about. We talked a little bit even before the morning box score of stuff we wanted to hit on. Before we start going in through a couple categories here, where do you want to take from that box score first and have us get into?
I feel like I need to do something positive to start because I'm feeling so negatively right now.
Okay.
One
Should
thing
we
I
should
would
we go
like
to
to
feeling
look
good,
at.
feeling great, or you
Let's
want to
just
do
go
something
to
else
it,
here?
man. Feeling good,
Let's just
feeling
do it.
great. Let's get it. And I'm feeling good, feeling great, I guess. Okay. So one thing I loved about this, we're on NBA.com here. You can filter through on the shot charts, which is awesome. And I love just looking at Jason Tatum's shot chart every game just to see what it looks like. And when you look at this shot chart, this is beautiful, right? You count how many shots in the paint there, how many shots are mid range. He has, I think it's 13 shots in the paint here, 8 for 13 in the paint, 1 for 8 from downtown, 1 shot outside the paint. But if Jason Tatum is driving the basket 13 times or taking 13 shots at the rim, normally that's a recipe for success. Tatum, because he was so aggressive, you saw him bitching at the refs, right? And Chris
Yeah.
Mannix even brought that up after the game where he was just like, hey, like Tatum's got to just cut this shit out with the refs. And that's something Ime was hollering at him for. And I'm already not feeling great now. But this shot chart here,
Really turned the segment on its head here, Greg.
Right? The shot chart does look great. If you're thinking like, okay, let's just not overreact to a small sample size of one game. Let's look at the trends. If this is what a Jason Tatum shot chart looks from day to day, where you have 3-pointers and attempts at the rim, I'll take that all day. You know, you would like for this to translate into more free throw attempts, which is why I think he was bitching at the refs, because he's going to the rim this year. You know, he's going to the rim, and he's going to the rim hard. And there was that one very obvious push that Kuzma had on him where he ended up smoking the layup, but it was because he got pushed. Did he try to sell the contact to get, not focus on the basket and try to focus on getting to the line? Maybe. But I like this. I like this here from him. Another thing that I actually really like, talking about shot charts, Robert Williams. Look at that, man. That's beautiful from Robert Williams. Everything right around the rim, just being a threat. When you look at all the shot charts, it seems like we probably would have won the game. Robert Williams' shot chart's pretty nice. Marcus Smart didn't shoot well, but he didn't shoot too frequently. He only took 5 3-pointers, which is great. 1 for 5. That's about where we want Marcus. He needs to be a threat if he's going to be on the floor, so he's got to shoot him. He looked great there. And then you go to Al Horford, another beautiful shot chart. For those of you that are listening at home, sorry, you don't have the visual medium to follow along with, but Al Horford here, 2 for 4 from 3. 4 baskets right around the rim, including those 2 huge putbacks in the fourth quarter to bring the Celtics within 6 when they were down 10. Al Horford, another guy that actually played well. For whatever reason, though, this isn't translating into winning basketball, and that's where I'm kind of at a loss. Was there anything from that box score that you liked?
Yeah, man. I mean, you just ended on Al Horford. That's one of the things I think really easily sticks out to me is just having Al back is such a I've probably used before. He's just a steadying presence, but when he's out there, and it felt like in the fourth there was a large stretch before he came back around. I think it was just above the 5-minute mark or so, where it felt like I kind of wish he'd come in a couple minutes earlier. Because when Al's on the court, and it just feels like this team can operate at a higher level when he's out there. And you look at his play both on the defensive end, the offensive end, seemingly almost everything that we're trying to do or that Ime is trying to do works just a little better. Like it's a little like it's like 2% better, even at its best without Al Horford. It's like 2% better if you just put Al Horford in there into like all of the schemes that he's trying to run. So, and I get it. You have to kind of conserve. He's 35 years old. You got to he's got a lot of mileage on him. You do have to try and conserve him at times. So I get it. But I loved Al Horford. I could have used a little bit more of him. His counterpart, Lob Williams. When you showed his shot chart, I love that. And one of the things that I had started to notice from him over the last few games, and I felt like he heard me. And I shouldn't say just me. I saw Keith Smith and others tweet this as well. That early in the game, he was very active, got a couple of offensive rebounds, got the ball down low, but was not being assertive or aggressive to score. He was immediately looking to kick it out. And to the point you showed Marcus Smart's shot chart, sometimes he was kicking out to a Marcus Smart, who at that point, he should be taking the shot, but what's a better shot? Rob Williams at the rim or Marcus Smart taking that 3? It's Rob Williams attacking and being aggressive at the rim. And so he got better with that as the game went on, but that's something he's done a couple of times throughout the season. But it felt like early on after that happened a few times in the first quarter, maybe someone said something to him because he was certainly much more aggressive in those situations going forward. And the last guy I want to talk about, because I have a bit of an analogy I want to run by you and see what you think. Let's talk about Dennis Schroeder for a minute. So Dennis Schroeder, I thought Dennis Schroeder was great tonight. I love the energy. You talk about being focused and energy. I thought he brought it pretty much the entire game. I don't really have. He's a guy that tonight I don't have any qualms with in that department. He ended up with 22 points. He's hit 4 3-pointers in back-to-back games, which is certainly not a part of his game that I think will realistically stick. But the Dennis Schroeder experience is just a wild ride, man. It's a wild ride. So
It is.
here's what I feel like, or what I'm starting to feel like through 5 games rooting Dennis Schroeder is like. It must be like, it must feel what it is to be a day trader.
Okay.
I feel like you have these ups, you have these downs at the end, and you got to kind of live with them because that's just how the game goes. But at the end of the day, the goal is just to be a little bit better than you were at the start of the day, and then you kind of ride it through, and you hope to hit some of the peaks at the right time, but you're going to hit some of those valleys at certain points. That feels like the Dennis Schroeder experience. Are you vibing with
Okay.
me on that at all, or is
So we
that
got like no, we got like day trade Dennis or maybe Dogecoin Dennis, just like riding the peaks and valleys of it. No, I hear you, man. He's just, when you look at him, he's 6 for 15 from the field, which is probably too many shots. And then he shot 6 free throws, but it's not too many shots because like he's one of the few guys. It's him, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum are the only 3 guys on the court that can really create their own shot. You
Yeah.
hoped that Josh Richardson would be that guy, but dude,
It's a rough start.
It's a rough start for Josh Richardson. He doesn't look great. He does not look great. I like his energy on defense. I think he actually makes an impact on defense, but like we can't just rely on Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Dennis Schroeder to carry our offense. That is not a recipe for success. That's way too much you're putting on those guys. And when you have I'll get to that later. The spacing, Dennis Schroeder. Let's stay on that. He's lightning fast, man. I really like watching him play. It's just I know that we're seeing too much of him for what this team needs to be. For this team to be great, Dennis Schroeder needs to do less, and he's doing so much, and we need him to do this. But to me, that's a product of Ime's shitty fucking lineups. Ime, what the fuck are you doing with these lineups, bro? Like, honestly, dude. Like, I want to love you. I want to love you, Ime, but I honestly don't think you've been watching NBA basketball for the last 20 years because you have 0 shooting on the floor.
So to help us move to this, because we're just going to start moving into to that shit we don't like, because that's just where this was going to go. It was inevitable. We've been on that course since we said what's up to y'all 18 minutes ago. But you even said it, and I was curious to hear you say at the beginning that you were even kind of lucky to get that Hornets win a few nights ago. And when I think back, because even in that game, Aaron Smith catches a DNP, caught another DNP tonight. Peyton Pritchard got a DNP tonight. Peyton Pritchard, I think, played about 15 minutes, maybe a little less in the Charlotte game. And those are 2 guys that, as we're talking about rotations, we're talking about shooting and spacing, like it's just blowing my fucking mind. We're up to 4, I think, total on the F-bombs here. It's blowing my mind that they're not in the lineup in some capacity. And, you say the Charlotte game was lucky. One of the things that jumped out to me is that we got 7 3-pointers, 7 made 3-pointers at an efficient rate from Dennis Schroeder and Jabari Parker. That is a big reason why the Celtics didn't completely fall out of that game early on and throughout, is the fact that we got 7 3-pointers from guys that don't make threes. Now, I know Jabari made another one tonight, and Schroeder made 4 more threes tonight. I absolutely have no I'm a big fan of a lot of what Schroeder's doing. I do not have any faith in him being, like a 38% 3-point shooter at the end of this, and that we're going to get a lot of 4-point, 4 3-pointer made games out of him as the season goes. So to that, like I do think that plays into it being a little bit of a lucky win against Charlotte because of those facts. Then you look at tonight, and tonight's just a disaster without having the proper spacing and having the shooting. And too many times that I look at the court and I start to look around. Okay, Jason Tatum's our best shooter out here. Who's second? And way too quickly am I getting to Marcus Smart. Way too quickly am I getting to Dennis Schroeder. Way too quickly am I getting to Al Horford when after I get past Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. And it's like there has to be, and like I love the start Grant's on. We just don't know if that shooting is 100% real to the point that it's a true threat. You know what I mean? Like we see great signs, but we do have to pump the brakes on that a little bit and see kind of over a larger sample size what that turns into. And so yeah, man, what the hell is going on with some of these rotations?
I wish I could tell you, man, other than like Josh Richardson was Ime's guy in Philly, right? So I think you want to kind of give him a chance. Also, he has a tradable contract eventually, right? So like eventually you want to be able to trade Josh Richardson. And for him to be tradable, he needs to have value. For him to have value, he needs to be on the floor, right? Unfortunately, that's coming at the expense of a guy that you need to develop. Like, also, another great trade piece would be Aaron Nesmith if you really wanted to move somebody. But like Nesmith, man, he has a skill set that not many guys on the roster have. And although it hasn't translated to success on the court this year, it just blows my mind that when you think back to Aaron Nesmith in that Orlando preseason game, I know it's a preseason game against Orlando. I understand the words I just said. Okay. But he had 28 points and he looked like he was in a rhythm. And then the very next game, he just gets like pushed to the end of the rotation and doesn't really get a chance. In the season, he hasn't gotten a chance. And I don't really understand why. Like, I really don't. I'm trying to figure this out. And when you look at the guys that are shooting, some people might argue. They might say like, oh, well, Dennis Schroeder hit 4 for 6 3-pointers. Well, Grant Williams hit all these 3-pointers. Well, Jabari Parker hit all these 3-pointers. Okay. Well, why are they getting to shoot so many 3-pointers? It's because no one fucking respects them as a shooter. So they're wide the fuck open. And if that's the case, that means they don't have gravity on the court. And if they don't have gravity on the court, that means the court is shrunk to the size of the fucking paint. And the Jays, if they're the only two people on the court that, that can create their own shot, like in the starting lineup, what the hell are we doing? There's no space for them to operate. We're trying to run these horn sets with the two bigs, and then we're trying to run some like second side action, getting Tatum or Brown off a pin down. But all you have to do if you're a defender at that point is just lock them to the baseline. And when I say lock them to the baseline, that just means don't let them get over the top of the screen. And if you try and run that action and try and get Tatum off a curl or Jalen off a curl off of that horn set on the weak side, it's just very easy to take away. And there's not a lot that we can do at that point. And that's when we end up standing and watching. Then when you consider that the people that are running the pick and roll are Marcus Smart, who's not a shooting threat, Dennis Schroeder, who's not a shooting threat, everyone's just sagging off. And you need to have guys on the court that have gravity. And Dennis Schroeder does not have gravity as a three-point shooter. Marcus Smart weirdly has a little bit of gravity, but like teams are going to let him shoot. Grant Williams doesn't have gravity. Al Horford doesn't have gravity. Josh Richardson is like anti-gravity. And like Aaron Nesmith and Peyton Pritchard, although they're not perfect players, and I'm not saying they're perfect players, in a vacuum, you could make an argument that Josh Richardson is a better player than Aaron Nesmith. And Dennis Schroeder is definitely a better player than Peyton Pritchard. But are they a better fit? And the answer is no. It's just obvious, man. And if we can all see this, I just don't understand why Ime is being stubborn in his rotation so early in the year. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't compute. I'm really trying to understand why he's doing it. And I think he wants an identity of a defensive-minded dog mentality, and you saw it work in the Charlotte game where we came back in a frenetic pace. We freaking full court pressed for like half the full fourth quarter. Like, that's not sustainable. That's the thing that really angers me, is like we're playing basketball like we're in an AAU tournament, and we're just like full court pressing, like hoping to get steals and cause chaos. And that's not how you're going to win 82 game season.
You know what it reminds me a little bit of? Like, think of what we expected. So we once again, y'all know we live in Austin, Texas. What we expected Shaka Smart to do when he came to Texas, when he was bringing havoc with him. Like, but at the end of a game, like, that's what the end of that Knicks game kind of felt like. That's what the end of that Hornets game felt like. And like, to your point, it's the NBA. It's an 82 game season with the most talented dudes in the world. You can't sustain that type of scheme, that type of level of, whatever you want to call it. It's just not going to work. It's the NBA. Mm-hmm. That's just how it goes, and it does feel like at times Ime's being very, very stubborn with these lineups. And I don't know, man. Like, I think this might have been, I think I saw this on Twitter. I'll have to see if I can find it here in a minute. This might have been one of Peyton Pritchard's first DMPs. Like coach's decision DMPs.
Yeah, he had a couple last year after he was really struggling with that injury.
Okay.
But man, the kid deserves to be on the court, man. He really does.
So let me say this real quick. He's more so, and I agree with you. I would like to see Nesmith out there as well. More so than Neesmith. Peyton Pritchard is the one for me, even though I think Neesmith has the higher potential and he needs to get the reps. Peyton Pritchard is the one for me where he's a ready-made NBA player right now. I just don't think there's an argument to be made that he's not a ready-made NBA player that you can't find. You can't find time to put him on the court. You go look at immediately. Just watch the first quarter of the Charlotte game. We are
Mhm.
struggling as all hell to put the ball in the basket. The spacing is off. We can't figure out what's going on. We're down, I think, with like about 4 minutes left, or maybe a little less than that, 29-20. Ended up closing the quarter about, I think, at 33-30 was the score going in, because all of a sudden you put Peyton Pritchard in there, you started to get gravity, you started to get
Mhm.
spacing. Jabari Parker made a couple of threes, yes, but a lot of that was all derived from the gravity and spacing that you're talking about from Peyton Pritchard being in the game. Every single time this year when Ime has gone to Peyton Pritchard, and you have even just one of the Jays, not even both. I'd love to see what it looks like with both of the Jays out there, to see what that gravity looks like, to see what those lanes look like. Because even though Jason Tatum was driving tonight, the lane's crowded. The lane's crowded, but they don't give a shit about who's out in the 3-point line. So I do want to see more Peyton Pritchard. And I don't get it, because every time he's in there, I feel like the offense flows more, and he's ready. And like if he feels like Neesmith's not ready, he's going to have to get the reps to be ready at some
Mhm.
point. So, I think I think last year, which I guess, I mean, last year, maybe last year doesn't mean anything because Ime wasn't here. So maybe that just doesn't
Yeah.
mean
We gotta
anything,
we
and he's
gotta throw
basing
that
it
shit out.
all off of right
Mhm.
now. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And so maybe that's the case, because in those first couple of games when he only got 10, 11 minutes, I don't know what it was that was going on with Neesmith, but you could tell mentally he was, I don't want to say shook because that feels a bit much, but he felt tentative. He didn't feel like he kind of knew his place within the offense or within his
Mhm.
role. And then the shots he got, when he missed them, he, like, it's like that kid that has the weight of the world on his shoulders, where you can tell like he feels like if he misses his one opportunity, he's never getting it
Mhm.
again. It kind
Yeah.
of felt like that energy with Aaron Neesmith, and that's I think that falls a little player, a little coach too, about you got to figure out kind of what that balance is. But with Peyton Pritchard, I think he's so NBA ready that I think it's kind of a joke that he didn't get a single minute in this game tonight.
I agree. It is a joke. It's a joke. And when you think about it, I haven't looked at all the lineup combinations that Ime has used, but you touched on it. I don't think Peyton Pritchard has been on the court with both of the Jays at the same time this year. I'm pretty sure. And if it has, it's been for a very short period of time.
Yeah.
But I would just like Ime. Okay, like, dude, at one point, let's try a lineup of Peyton Pritchard, the Jays, Grant Williams, and Al Horford, or Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, the Jays, and Al Horford. Just like the best
Mhm.
shooting lineup that you can possibly put on the floor. Just put it on the floor, man, and just see what happens. Because like there's zero space. And if you need like some sort of evidence to back it up, like you need to put it on the fucking court, dude.
Yeah.
And it's just frustrating, man, because I see what he's doing. I see that he's trying to establish an identity, but he's being fucking stubborn, man. He's really being stubborn, and it's clear. If you think benching Peyton Pritchard is the answer to solving your shitty offense right now, then no, man. Like, he's trying to create offense off of defense. That's what Ime's trying to do. And
Mhm.
I get it. That does lead to easy baskets, that leads to easy transition points and opportunities like that. And it can work, but that can't be your only recipe for success, man. Like, you have to have more things that you can go to. You have to have different arms in the bullpen. And Peyton Pritchard's a specialist, and you're not using your specialist. And Aaron Nesmith is a specialist, and he's young, and he's ready, and he's energetic. Put him in the fucking game, man, and just see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's all there is to it. I think we've hammered home that point about how we feel about there not being enough spacing and shooting on the floor. Before we start to go ahead and maybe wrap this up here, because this, not the funnest game to talk about. If we're just being honest, it's not the
Yeah.
funnest
No,
one.
yeah.
I mean, Celtics still looking for their first home win. No home wins yet. I
It's
mean,
a
only
joke.
0-2. But it doesn't feel great. Maybe we're just a road team. Maybe that's our calling card this year. We're a road team. We'll see.
I like it.
But real quick, let's just touch on that defense. Like, because I feel like the defensive scheme is what the only thing I can assume as to why, like you said, he's trying to set a defensive identity. And not that Peyton Pritchard is a terrible defender, but he's a liability in that scheme as far as just being targeted. And so I feel like that's the reason he's not out there, which still his offensive benefits outweigh that, and I'm just gonna say our opinion. I'm gonna go ahead and speak for you on that. But when it comes to this defense, it's not as if this defense, 5 games in, is setting the world on fire. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I just mentioned how we're getting out rebounded. We out rebounded by 14 tonight on the glass from a team that didn't even have their center for over half the game after Daniel Gafford left midway through the
Yeah.
second quarter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it feels a lot like, we're getting put in bad positions. I don't know if it's communication. I don't know if it's more just this defensive scheme needs more time. I know we switched to a little bit of drop coverage late, which he talked about in the post game presser. They went from switching everything at times to going 1 through 4, and then not switching with Rob. I don't know. You're the coach of the podcast. Tell me more, even if you're not ready to fully break it down. Just tell me a little bit about what you're seeing out there. 'Cause I feel like this is an area where you and I try to find our lanes. This is one that eventually I think you're going to crack, and you're going to figure out what it is you like or don't like about what's happening defensively. And maybe we're still all figuring it out. But what are some of
Mhm.
your initial impressions? Because I'm struggling to grasp certain parts of it here.
Well, I think we're doing some things all right. Like Marcus Smart's been really, really good with ball pressure. I think Dennis Schroeder's been really active with ball pressure. Dennis Schroeder actually really impressed me last year when he picked up Kemba full court in that game against the Lakers and just gave Kemba fits. Um, so I like what they're both doing at the point of attack, but then everything breaks down from there. Um, Jason Tatum has been okay. Jaylen Brown's been very inconsistent, as we saw tonight. Rob Williams has moments where he's great. He really does. I mean, he had another 4 blocks tonight, and he's an eraser at the rim. Al Horford's been good. It's just like you see all these guys that have actually been playing decent defense, but as a team, they're not cohesive with it. And I don't know if it's just like they don't know exactly what the scheme is yet, or if they don't trust each other. They're not communicating well enough. But it seems like a kind of mismatch of all of that shit, man. Like there are too many times. Okay, when you think about like in the finals, right?
Mhm.
When you trying to guard the Golden State Warriors in the finals, you literally have to pitch a perfect game to shut them down. Right? Every single thing has to be communicated. When you think back to how the Raptors guarded them in that finals, where every single switch, that's why Steph Curry is an MVP candidate, because he puts so much pressure on the communication of your defense,
Yeah.
and you have to be so perfect. And like we're barely ready to stop average teams. When we go against great teams with their actions, we're going to get destroyed and embarrassed. Because anytime we run any sort of action, like the Miamis of the world, we're not ready to play a Miami of the world. Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson are going to go fucking crazy on us if we think that we're going to be able to guard those dudes. And like, we're good for 4 out of every 5 possessions. And then within those 4 out of 5 possessions, we're good for 80% of that possession. But within the 20%, that's where the buckets are happening. You have to be
Mhm.
good 5 out of 5 possessions. You have to be good for 24 seconds. And we're just not there yet. It's just inconsistency. There are times where we execute the schemes perfectly. One of the things I saw them doing a little bit in the first half was staying on the high side and locking people to the baseline and really trying to use Rob as that rim deterrent like Utah uses Rudy Gobert. And I
Yeah, you
thought they did
texted me this during the
yeah,
game,
I thought
actually.
they did a good job with that a couple times. That's the first time I've really seen them use that scheme as, funnel everything to Rob. That's kind of seemed like what they were trying to do at times. And then there were other times where they just got beat backdoor off of that, or
Mhm.
Rob was in the wrong spot, or like, Rob ended up having to come up and guard the ball, and then they, high low pass, someone gets beat backdoor. It's just like too many things where we're not consistent
Yeah.
100% of the time. And to be a great NBA defense, you got to be consistent 100% of the time. And guys are going to hit tough shots in your face, but you can't give them the easy shots. And then we're not getting back in transition enough. There are too many times where I don't know what the transition numbers were today, but just this year, we've been bad in transition. And there are times where guys are sprinting. And I love that. I think the Celtics are running really hard on offense, but then not running really hard on defense. And to me, that's just like, all right, man, Jaylen Brown played 37 minutes tonight. Jason Tatum played 36 minutes tonight. Dennis Schroeder played 35. Marcus Smart played 36. You got to play other dudes, man. Like you got to put guys that's what it comes down to. Like Ime, he seems like he has an old school mentality, but you can't run your guys into the ground this early into the season.
He's got a little bit of a Tibbs thing going. I looked at this earlier before this game, and so with tonight's game, I don't think it's going to change that much. But Tatum, Smart, Brown, all three are in the top 10 in minutes played per game right now. All
Multiple
three are
overtime
in there.
games, though.
Multiple overtime games. That is fair. That is true. That does skew the metric a bit. But the point being, he's playing these guys a lot, a lot. So
Mhm.
I don't know. We're gonna have to see what happens here. We'll keep an eye on that. I think that defensive breakdown you just gave was great. I appreciate that's why you're the coach. That's what you do, man. Coach of the podcast. That's how you
Yeah,
step up.
man.
That's how you fill the lane. See what I did there? Um, but I think that's gonna do it for today, man. I mean, so actually, before we got here, let me ask you one last thing.
Mhm.
Other than obviously looking to see Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith touch the court, we play the Wizards again on Saturday. Weird matinee, late afternoon game on a weekend. We're trying to get rid of last year's. We know last year those matinees on the weekends fucking killed us.
Mhm.
They were just, except for that one Nuggets game, it was just brutal loss after brutal loss. So, putting the time of the game aside, and putting what we've already really honed in on about wanting to see Peyton Pritchard and Aaron Nesmith more, what's the number one thing you're looking for to be different on Saturday to have a different result than tonight?
We gotta shut down Montrez. We can't let Montrez be Montrez from where do you go? Louisville?
Louisville. Loved Montrez
Yeah.
at Louisville. I
Yeah,
didn't
he
think he'd
was
be
so
this good
good.
in the
He
NBA,
was
but
so good
he's an
on
energy
Louisville,
guy.
man. Yeah, I mean, 10 for 13, 11 rebounds. He had 2 blocks. He was the alpha dog on the court. Montrez kind of reminds me of like Pat Bev. Like when you let that dude be a front runner, they're gonna front run all over your face. But like you got to punch the bully back, man. And he just bullied the shit out of us. And that's on Rob, that's on Al, that's on Grant. Maybe you got to put in fucking Bruno, man. I feel like Bruno's got a little crazy gene in him, or Cantor. I know, Cantor. He's on some crazy shit with the political stuff right now, but
He's on his
like,
shit with that, yeah.
yeah, like, man, that's a whole nother can of worms. But maybe throw Cantor into the game.
I mean, hell, we lost the rebound battle, like I said, minus 14 on the boards tonight. What's the number one thing Enes Kanter does?
He rebounds.
Exactly.
Oh no
Exactly. I
no
mean,
no
I
no no
was
no no. No. He he hates China.
He hates China. He loves wrestling. Enes Kanter, a man of many interests. He's probably a topic that we could honestly go into him in a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways, we'll see what happens here. Celtics gonna be back at it against the Wizards on Saturday. Tonight, if y'all are following us on social media, we did have a giveaway. However, Celtics didn't win. There wasn't a single person that guessed that. So we're going to roll it over. We're going to do another giveaway. We're not going to be live a week from tonight. Next week, we're going to have a few things on the schedule. So our podcasting, recording schedule may be a little bit different. We got to figure out some stuff on the back end. But on that Wednesday, instead of us going live, our man Greg here, a.k.a. Manekas Music, a.k.a. the lead singer of the Black Sheep Optimist, they will be performing live at Mohawk here in Austin, Texas. I know not all of our listeners are obviously going to be familiar with that venue here in Austin, but it is a really badass venue. For anyone that happens to be in the Texas area, Greg, you want to give them any details here?
Yeah, you could find the link to the tickets through our Instagram at Black Sheep Optimists through like Eventbrite or something like that. And then if you buy the ticket, just make sure you click you're going to see Black Sheep Optimists. That really helps us out. And then just in general, if you haven't checked out the music, Black Sheep Optimists, we're doing some cool things here, man. We got some great new music coming out. Will's repping the shirt right there for the viewers. And yeah, I'm excited about this show. We're performing with one of my favorite performers down here. His name's Tone Royal. He's dope. He's actually the in-game announcer for UT and for San Antonio Spurs. So he's
Oh,
like the
dope.
MC. Yeah, so he's amazing. And this other dude, Jefferson Clay, who's super talented. So I'm excited to see how big of a lineup this is. Mohawk's like one of the biggest venues in Austin that you can play. I've never played it before. I'm ready for it though, dude. I'm ready. There's not going to
Let's
be any
go.
lackluster effort getting ready for this shit. Shoot around is going to be laser fucking focused, bro.
Let's go, baby. We've turned it in for that one. So, like I said, we won't be live next Wednesday. 2 weeks from now is likely the next time we go live, but stay tuned. Follow us on social media at Green MV Pod. Follow at the 617. As always, subscribe and follow the 617 podcast to get all that good shit that we continue to put out for y'all. We'll be back later this weekend with another podcast, or early next week, with another podcast. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Green with Envy post game live. Greg, go ahead and give us one final thought and then send us on out of here as you always do.
If you didn't check out our pod with Amina Smith, make sure you go check that out. We put that out a few days
Lob
ago.
Williams, baby.
Yeah, she shouted us out on the Celtics post game after the Hornets game. That was really dope. We posted a video of that. So shout out Amina. Shout out everyone that's been listening. Shout out Arthur Guinness. He DM'd me today and he was just like, yo, man, like I love the pod. And he was kind of going back and forth with me about how much he listens to our pod. So shout out to you, man. That was dope to get a message like that of support. He said he couldn't leave a review though. So Arthur can't leave a review, but what about everybody else? How about you leave some reviews? Show us some love. He couldn't leave a review because he doesn't listen on Apple Podcasts. That's why.
Hey,
So
man, I listen on Spotify too. I get it, Arthur. I get
you
it.
can't even lead a review. Goddamn. But this song leading us out is from my band down here in Black Sheep Optimus. And we're going to hit you with our new song that's actually releasing on Tuesday. I kind of forgot about this. This one is called Tomorrow. Let's hope the Celtics have a better game Saturday. Tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.